Hello, Adam from GodIsAGeek.com here, and we thought that since the embargo for the Order 1886 has just lifted, we would just do something a bit different here. So a way of showing you some of the game is we thought we'd take the interview, which hopefully you've already read by now, and put the audio from that, where Dan is interviewing the chap from Ready at Dawn, over some gameplay footage, so you kind of get the best of both worlds, really. So the first voice you're going to hear is Dan Naylor, our news editor, and yeah, enjoy.
You know, when you first set out to start making the Order, did you set out to create a cinematic kind of experience from the start, or was it kind of a shooter first and foremost that you kind of aimed for, and it developed into?
It was first and foremost, it was a shooter. It was first. We were building our gameplay mechanics to try and figure out what kind of game we wanted to make. One of the things that did influence the fact that it was going to be a filmy game, visually we knew what we wanted to target. So regardless of anything else, we wanted to have this filmic feel to the game, you know, kind of like grain and imperfections and lens, like the way we build our lenses, the way we build our materials. We had all of that in mind. One thing that did kind of like push a little bit of that cinematic feel was that we decided very early on that the objective for the team was to have no pre-rendered cinematics in the game. As soon as you did that, that meant that everything needed to run in-game, real-time. As soon as that is your objective, suddenly you start realizing that like you're making this game that constantly basically pulls you in and out of gameplay and has like, you know, this kind of flow that never stops. And that flow actually naturally became that kind of cinematic feel. But at the core, it was always,
always a shooter.
Yeah, always a shooter.
Excellent. You said that, you know, kind of regardless of anything else. So has any other aspect of the game suffered because you've tried to push this visual thing, like to maintain the visual quality that you want? Have you had to cut back in other areas?
Not really. No, not really. Actually, the thing is that the visuals more than anything helped everything that we were trying to do. It serves ultimately every single aspect of what you develop in the game kind of serves the mechanics that you're trying to build. For us, knowing that the core was there and what the core was meant that everything that we put on top of it had to actually enhance that core mechanic that the game was trying to show. I don't think at any given time, actually, every time we had to actually make strong decisions about like where we were going to go, we always, kind of fell back on I think what gamers usually do, which is that, gameplay has to win. So we always kind of took that route, even when like we had to make some sacrifices that we felt was pretty big on other sides. We always said like, look, gameplay is going to suffer because of this. There's absolutely no way that we're going to do.
What kind of things did you have to lose?
I mean, like even visually, like when you talk about like how the fidelity of certain things and what you want to do, sometimes you have to just dial down the things that the artists want to show on screen, and just go like, look, it already looks beautiful. We can't go that far because you're asking that somebody else has to basically give up on something of theirs.
Right. Okay.
And it's always a trade. Like it's always a trade on multiple fronts, but we always try to make sure that the trade always is beneficial to gameplay.
Excellent. Obviously, some part of the game where some kind of quick time events, and you mentioned the Cinemili.
Cinemili, yeah.
Cinemili. Sorry, I can't.
No, it's fine.
Now, some titles like Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, they kind of relied heavily on quick time events, and they kind of got a little bit criticised for that. Are you worried about that happening for you, or?
No, not at all, because I think people find it surprising when they play the game that there's not that many quick time events. I mean, you've seen the demos that we played and all that stuff. It's not about quick time events. Most of the demos actually, we've shown, like 2 demos here that were core gameplay, and none of it was quick time events. We've shown a Cinemili that actually is a melee-based, movement-based thing that is actually not based on quick time either. It's interesting that people got that out of the stuff we've shown, because I think the issue is this: when you see a game look the way it does, like we did, people automatically assume that there cannot be gameplay attached to it because we've sacrificed everything. Yeah, it looks like a cutscene, so obviously it cannot be a game that plays out. But the reality of it is that most of the game is just you play around the world, and most people who have played it now kind of finally got the idea. I think after a long time, because maybe we didn't do the exact right job to basically relay that. But we always believed that once people got their hands on the game, they would realize that a game can look like this and not be just a quick time event filled game. As a matter of fact, it's very seldom that you have them. It's not very often that you have like quick time events.
Okay, I was going to say the section I played on the airship earlier, I didn't notice any then. So.
Yeah, and did you play the funeral section as well?
I
whatever
didn't,
it's called?
I think that was on the other sections. How does it promote like replayability of the game? What's going to draw players?
So replayability, the way we did it, of course, like people I think expect that nowadays. They want they want to basically know that there is something else they need to do. The way we did replayability, it was in trying to actually add content to the game that was more lore than anything else, like finding out more things about the game. There's a lot of information in there hidden, sometimes in front of you, that actually will give you a lot more about the IP. It answers questions that you have in the game. It poses questions that hopefully will be answered in the future. But it kind of expands the horizons of the IP.
Cool. Because do you have plans then to take it on as like a franchise if it?
Well, yeah. I mean,
off?
if it takes off, of course, that's always the thing, right? I mean, the reason why we create this is because we want people to play it, and of course, if people will play it and they have that hunger to have more, there's a lot more where the story is going to go and where it's been already, as far as like what's been written. There's a lot of stories that are in the past of 1886 and in the future as well.
Sony traditionally hasn't really had many kind of third-person shooters, like exclusives.
Yeah.
While Microsoft kind of has Gears and a couple of others, do you think kind of the Order is kind of Sony's kind of answer to that then? You see yourself pitched against that with a slightly different market?
That's a good one. I don't think we ever walked into it thinking that. I'm not sure that it is, purely because the experience is very different than any of the other games that are out there. Even any shooter, third-person shooter out there, I think the experience is going to be very different for people who play it. We never set out to do it. I think Sony actually is very different. Microsoft actually makes great games, when it comes to like things like Gears and Halo and games that have actually had a huge impact on the way we perceive games and we play games. Sony is more on the creative side. They do games for other purposes. I think they all have their doctrines that they basically live by. And for us, this was not an answer to a hole that was there. It was more of there's a great idea that I think we have. There's a great platform that's coming out. Let's try to make the two work together.
Excellent. Cool. Do you feel like under any pressure, because some of most of Sony's PS4 exclusives so far kind of received a mixed critical kind of reaction? Is there added pressure on you now that this needs to be at a certain level? Or?
No, not really. I don't think the pressure is there. The only pressure that's there is oftentimes by the expectation of people, not just by like that we have to somehow hit it out of the park because others have not been able to do that. We're always kind of like the number one people that we have to actually please out there is not a publisher, it's the people who play the game, and it's the good pressure that we have. It's the people who actually go out there that meet us, at like a place like PSX, that when we have a chance to basically see those guys who play games, who love what we all do, and give you feedback. That's the good pressure that we have. It's those guys who are like, oh, I wish you would do that. You should definitely do that. And you're like, shit, okay, that you're doing it already, but you're like, okay, I hope I'm not going to disappoint them because, they're expecting something this big, and hopefully it is going to be that big when we don't get it out there.
Brilliant. During your presentation earlier on, you described Sir Galahad as not the hero, but he is the protagonist. Why did
he's the protagonist? He's not a hero.
Why do you make that distinction? Why is he not?
Because I hate heroes. I don't know how to say it in a better way, but like I'm not fond of the whole idea of heroes. Heroes are a utopia that actually we create because of the way we'd like to think of good and bad and good, evil and good and all that stuff. For me, the most important about Galahad is that he's neither a hero, neither a villain or anything like that, just like any of the other characters. Describing him as a hero automatically puts him on a pedestal that you basically can't take him off of afterwards. What he is he's a knight, he's a warrior, he's somebody who's done things like in his life. You automatically as a warrior have to basically do things that you most likely don't like. And as a protagonist, he's a complex character, and he's all of the characters in there are complex. It's just that the word hero always kind of like has this thing for me where I just always feel like no. Nobody's a hero. There's no heroes in the world. Like, there are people who do good, but the single definition of a hero basically makes a distinction that puts you somehow above others or anything like that. Where I like the idea of people actually all having it in them to do something. It's getting more philosophical than anything else.
That's fine.
That people have it in them to actually do great things. And that's what people like Galahad in the game is. It's like, he's a person who has he has it in him to actually succeed in certain things and do great things, but that doesn't put him above anybody else. Okay.
Does your game The Order have a villain then?
That's an interesting one. You should actually play it. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that yes. I mean, sometimes you can describe both good and evil in many ways. I think that I would say, like, you know, if you look at Lafayette in the game, he's more of a hero in the traditional sense than even Galahad would be. So if you want to talk about, is there somebody good in the game? In some ways, Lafayette is, because if you look at Lafayette's real history, he was one of those guys that is like 1 in a billion, where it doesn't come. They don't come often. He was somebody who actually did a lot of things actually for the right purposes, and at a young age, you know, when he became general in the American Revolutionary War, and everything he did in his life is pretty amazing. We kind of stuck to kind of that character trait. So if there's good and evil in the game, there are people that you might perceive as being more good and evil than anybody else. I think that you will definitely find, but there is no absolute.
Cool. Fantastic. And just one last question, and we ask this to everybody that we interview at God is a Geek. Where do you keep your ketchup? Is it in the cupboard or in the fridge?
Ah, that's a good one. Actually, both. You know why?
Both? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because I've got 2 different kinds of ketchup.
You have what kinds of ketchup do you have?
So I have a traditional ketchup that we keep outside. It's more like, you know, like your regular ketchup that you have everywhere. But there's this other ketchup from Sri Lanka. I'm originally like as far as where my parents came from Sri Lanka, and there's this chili ketchup that they make over there that I absolutely love, and that one has to be refrigerated.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks. That's a good. What's with the ketchup?
The power's out in the basement.
It's the same here.
Proceed with caution.